The hospital was quieter than usual that night. The kind of quiet that made even small sounds feel louder than they should. The steady beeping of machines, the soft footsteps in the hallway, the distant murmur of voices. It all blended into a calm rhythm that most people would find peaceful. But for her, it felt different. She moved through the corridor with slow, steady steps, checking one last patient chart before closing it carefully. Her shift was almost over. Not just this shift, but her last one here. Something about that thought sat heavy in her chest, though she didn't let it show on her face. Anyone watching her would have seen the same composed nurse they had always known. Calm, focused, efficient. The one people call when things got difficult. The one who never seemed to panic, even when everyone else did. But tonight, there was a slight pause in her movements. A moment longer at each bedside. A quieter tone in her voice when she spoke to patients. Almost like she was memorizing everything. A young nurse approached her near the station, holding a clipboard a little too tightly. "Can you take a look at this?" she asked, her voice unsure. "I think something's off, but I'm not completely sure." She took the clipboard without hesitation and scanned it quickly. Her eyes moved fast, catching details others might miss. Within seconds, she nodded. "You're right to question it," she said gently. "But it's not what you think. Look here." She pointed to a small detail, something easy to overlook. "It's reacting to this medication. Adjust the dosage slightly and monitor closely. It should stabilize." The younger nurse blinked, then nodded with a mix of relief and admiration. "I don't know how you catch these things so fast." She gave a small, quiet smile. "You will too. Just takes time." The younger nurse walked away, clearly reassured, but she stayed there for a second longer, her fingers resting lightly on the edge of the desk. Her expression shifted, just for a moment, into something more distant. Then it was gone. A call came from one of the rooms. Urgent. She didn't rush, but her pace changed. Focus sharpened. The calm nurse was still there, but something else came forward too. Something more precise, more alert. Inside the room, a patient's condition had suddenly worsened. The monitors were reacting faster now, their steady rhythm replaced by uneven signals. Another staff member was already there, tried to respond, but clearly overwhelmed. "It's not stabilizing," the staff member said quickly. "I've tried." "It's okay," she said, already stepping in. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried authority, the kind that made people stop and listen without thinking about it. She assessed the situation in seconds. Not just the obvious signs, but the small details, the way the patient was breathing, the timing of the machine readings, the subtle changes others might ignore. "Adjust the oxygen," she said calmly. "Not too much. Slowly." The other nurse followed her instructions immediately. "Prepare the next dose," she added, her tone steady. "We're not waiting for it to get worse." There was no panic in her movements, no hesitation, just clear decisions, one after another. For a few tense moments, the room felt like it was holding its breath. Then, gradually, the monitors began to settle. The irregular signals smoothed out. The patient's breathing became more stable. The staff member let out a breath they didn't realize they were holding. I didn't even see that coming. She gave a small nod, already stepping back. "That's why we watch closely. It's rarely sudden. There are always signs." The staff member looked at her with a kind of quiet respect. "You make it look easy." "It's not," she said softly. "You just learn how to stay steady." She left the room without waiting for praise or thanks. That wasn't why she did any of this. Back at the station, a few of her co-workers were talking. The usual end-of-shift conversations. Complaints about long hours. Plans for the weekend. Small jokes to lighten the mood. Someone noticed her and smiled. "You're finally done after tonight, right?" She nodded. "Must feel good," another said, "getting out of all the stress." She paused for a moment before answering, something like that. They laughed lightly, not noticing the weight behind her words. "Don't forget us when you're living your peaceful life," one of them added jokingly. She gave a faint smile but didn't respond. Peaceful wasn't the word she would have chosen. As the minutes passed, She completed her final tasks, checked the last charts, updated the notes, made sure everything was in order for the next shift. She moved through it all with the same care she always had. No shortcuts, no rushing. If anything, she was more careful tonight than ever before. At one point, she stopped near a window at the end of the hallway. Outside, the night was still. The faint glow of streetlights reflected on the pavement. It looked ordinary, quiet, safe. Her gaze lingered there a little longer than usual. A memory flickered across her mind, something louder, harsher. Not like this calm night at all. But she pushed it away just as quickly. Behind her, footsteps approached. "You okay?" a colleague asked. She turned slightly. "Yeah, just finishing up." "You're going to be missed," the colleague said sincerely. "Things won't be the same without you." She nodded once. "You'll manage." It wasn't dismissive. It was honest. The colleague hesitated, then added, "Still, it's strange. You never really talked about what you're going to do next." She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Sometimes it's better that way." The colleague looked like they wanted to ask more, but something in her tone made them stop. "Well, whatever it is, I hope it's good." She gave a small, polite smile. "Me too." The final minutes of her shift slipped by quietly. When the clock finally reached the end, she removed her badge slowly. Her fingers paused on it for just a second before placing it down. That simple action felt heavier than it should have. She picked up her things and took one last look around. The station, the hallway, the familiar faces moving through their routines. No dramatic goodbye. No big moment. Just a quiet ending. She turned and began walking toward the exit. Each step felt steady, but there was something unspoken behind it. Not hesitation, not regret, just awareness that something was changing. As she reached the doors, the cool air from outside brushed against her face. She stepped out into the night. For a moment, everything felt still. Then she noticed it. Parked across the street were a few dark vehicles. Nothing flashy. No obvious markings. But they didn't belong to the usual traffic around the hospital. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in fear, but in recognition. She didn't move closer. Didn't react in a way anyone else would notice. Instead, she stood there calmly, watching. The vehicles had arrived quietly, almost too quietly. A couple of figures stepped out. Their movements were controlled, purposeful, even from a distance. There was something different about them. Anyone else might have dismissed it. Just another group arriving late at night. But she knew better. Her expression didn't change, but her posture did, just slightly. More alert, more aware. For a brief second, it looked like she might turn and walk away. But she didn't. She stayed exactly where she was, waiting. The figures moved quickly and silently across the parking lot, their steps precise and controlled. Even from a distance, their presence demanded attention, and she felt a strange calm in the way they carried themselves. It wasn't intimidation, exactly. It was recognition. She understood what kind of people they were without ever having met them before. As they reached the sidewalk, two of them paused, looking toward the hospital entrance. One of them spoke softly into a small device clipped to his shoulder. She couldn't hear the words, but the tone was sharp, professional, almost commanding. Then they looked directly at her. Her lips remained neutral, but her eyes sharpened. She didn't move, didn't fidget. She had been expecting this kind of arrival for a long time, even if she hadn't known exactly when it would happen. She could feel in the air, a tension she had learned to read long ago. The group began moving toward her. Their approach was deliberate, respectful. There was no yelling, no sudden movements, no attempts to draw attention from passers-by. A couple people walking nearby glanced over curiously, but quickly looked away. They didn't understand what they were witnessing. When they were close enough, the tallest among them stopped and raised his hand slightly, a subtle gesture that didn't need words. She nodded in return. That single motion was enough to acknowledge a connection deeper than casual recognition. The man then spoke. His voice was low, controlled, and serious. "We need to speak with you. Now!" She glanced at him briefly, reading more in his stance than his words. "I know," she said softly, almost quietly. Not a question, not hesitation. Just acknowledgement. "Lead the way." He gave a brief nod to the others, and the group subtly shifted to form a protective perimeter around her as they began walking. She matched their pace without difficulty. It wasn't fear or confusion that kept her steady. It was familiarity. She had been here before, in situations that demanded quiet precision and complete awareness. People in the parking lot noticed them now. Some slowed down to watch, some whispered to each other, but no one approached. The presence of the group and the way she moved with them had a weight that kept onlookers at a distance. They entered one of the vehicles parked nearby. The interior was minimal, efficient, with just enough space for their group and her. She slid into the seat without hesitation, her expression calm, her body posture straight and relaxed but alert. The man beside her gave a short, silent instruction to the driver, and the vehicle moved off smoothly, the engine quiet but powerful. Inside, the atmosphere was focused. No small talk, no unnecessary movement. Every person had a role, and it was clear she was part of that structure, even if she didn't speak immediately. Finally, the tallest man turned toward her. "We have a situation," he said plainly. "We need your expertise. You are the only one who can guide us through this." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but her face remained composed. "I understand," she said. Her voice had a quiet authority. There was no hesitation, no doubt. She listened intently as he described the situation. Every detail mattered. Timing, condition, variables that only someone with her skills would grasp. The situation was complicated, dangerous, and time-sensitive. There were lives at stake, multiple lives. She could feel the weight of it immediately. But instead of panic, a calm focus settled over her. This was exactly the kind of challenge she had trained for. Not in the hospital, not in classrooms. Somewhere else, somewhere intense, where split-second decisions meant the difference between survival and disaster. She leaned slightly forward. "We'll need to coordinate quickly," she said. "I will need access to the necessary resources, and everyone must follow the plan exactly. No improvisation unless I authorize it." The man nodded, clearly understanding her authority. He didn't question her. He had no reason to. He knew she would lead them correctly. And the others in the vehicle, trained operators themselves, shifted subtly, acknowledging her command without words. For a moment, she allowed herself to think of the hospital she had just left behind, the quiet halls, the faces of patients and colleagues, the finality of her shift. None of it mattered now. This mission, this moment, demanded her full attention. She had chosen to leave one world behind, and she had stepped seamlessly into another. She began giving precise instructions, her voice calm but firm. Everyone in the vehicle listened without interruption. Every command was clear, every word measured. They checked their equipment, prepared for immediate action, and reviewed contingency plans. It was fast, efficient, and structured. Every second counted. The vehicle stopped briefly at a location she recognized from her memory, coordinates she had studied, routes she had mentally mapped long ago. She stepped out carefully, scanning the surroundings as if nothing had changed from a mission long past. The SEALs flanked her, silent and watchful, their eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. She didn't speak unnecessarily. She didn't flinch at movement or sound. Her mind processed everything: terrain, distance, timing, possible threats. The SEALs followed her cues without hesitation, moving as though she were the one directing the entire operation. Because she was. When they reached the point where they would begin the mission, she paused for just a second. Her gaze met theirs. There was no question of trust. It was implied, earned long ago. And then she spoke, clearly and firmly. "We move as planned. Stay sharp. Eyes open. Follow my lead." They nodded, silently acknowledging her authority. In that moment, it became clear to anyone who could see it that she was not just a nurse. Not just someone who had saved lives quietly in hospital halls. She was a professional who had trained, endured, and executed under conditions most people couldn't imagine. As they moved into position, she scanned her surroundings again. Every detail mattered. Every movement had significance. She had anticipated this moment for years, even if the world outside didn't know it. The calmness she carried into the night was not the absence of danger. It was mastery of it. The SEALs responded seamlessly to her commands, demonstrating their own skill, while acknowledging hers. They were elite, but in this moment, she was the authority. Every instruction she gave was followed without question, without hesitation. And yet, she remained quiet, composed, and entirely in control. There was no arrogance, no ego, just focus, precision, the kind of confidence that comes from knowing exactly what must be done and being ready to do it, no matter the risk. As the night deepened and they moved toward the target area, she remained in that state of calm alertness. Every sense was engaged, every possibility considered, every movement intentional. She led the team without speaking more than necessary, her quiet authority carrying more weight than any shout could have. Behind her, the city slept, unaware of the presence of people moving in the shadows, and of a nurse who had stepped out her final shift only to step into a mission she was uniquely qualified to handle. She was ready. The SEALs were ready. And together, they would face the challenge ahead, relying on her experience, her calm, and her unmatched focus. This was not a story of fear. It was a story of readiness, of skill, of quiet authority that few would recognize, but that demanded respect from those who knew what it meant. And in that night, under the dim streetlights, with danger waiting ahead, she proved once again that she was more than appearances suggested, more than anyone could guess, and entirely in command of the moment. The vehicle slowed to a stop in a dimly lit alley, away from the main roads, far from prying eyes. She stepped out first, her movements precise, controlled, and calm. The men flanking her followed closely, their own steps silent but alert. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a rhythm, a language without words, born from training and trust. As she adjusted her jacket against the night air, a memory flickered in her mind. Not the kind that could be shared casually. It was sharp, vivid, and unyielding. She remembered the first time she had been faced with a life-and-death decision outside the safety of a hospital, a battlefield, chaos all around, the constant hum of danger pressing in from every side. She had learned then what it meant to act under pressure, to remain calm when others could not, to carry the weight of lives on her shoulders without faltering. Most people couldn't imagine that world, and few ever would, but it was part of her, etched into her being, shaping every instinct she now relied on. One of the men spoke softly, his tone formal but respectful. "We need to move quickly. Are you ready?" She gave a small nod. "Yes, let's proceed." The group advanced toward a nearby building, each step measured. She stayed slightly ahead, surveying the area, noting entrances, exits, shadows where danger might hide, and places where assistance could be staged. Every detail mattered, and she noticed them all instinctively. Her mind cataloged the possibilities even as her body moved gracefully, fluidly, without drawing attention to itself. As they approached the door, she motioned for them to halt. Her eyes swept over surroundings, noticing subtle shifts in light, movements in the distant corners, the faintest sounds that might indicate another presence. She listened, and then, with a single gesture, indicated the path forward. The men followed without hesitation, their trust in her absolute. They recognized her authority, even if her title had never suggested it. There was no question. Her presence commanded respect, earned not by rank but by skill and experience. Inside the building, the atmosphere shifted. Shadows loomed along the walls, and the air carried a faint metallic scent. She could feel the tension in the room, and in response, she slowed her breathing, keeping her mind clear. She focused on the task at hand, ignoring the unease that most would have felt. It wasn't that she wasn't aware of the danger. It was that she had learned to control it, to let it sharpen her focus instead of overwhelming her. One of the men handed her a small device, a kind of portable interface she had seen before, but had never used in a civilian setting. Her fingers moved over controls with familiarity, her eyes scanning the data that appeared on the screen. Every reading, every fluctuation, every alert was interpreted instantly. Decisions formed in her mind faster than most could comprehend. She directed the team, quietly but decisively, ensuring that each action taken was calculated, deliberate, and precise. Her thoughts drifted briefly, involuntarily, to the life she had just left behind. The hospital, her colleagues, the patients she attended to with care and compassion. It had been a world of controlled crises, of urgent decisions, of human fragility, and yet it had been predictable in comparison to this. Here, unpredictability ruled, and the stakes were far higher. But she felt no regret. She had chosen this path long ago, when she had realized that her skills could save more than just individual patients. They could protect many lives in ways no hospital could. The team moved silently through the corridors, following her lead. Her presence dictated the pace, the rhythm, the very way they approached the mission. Even the men, trained to operate in high-risk environments, deferred instinctively to her judgment. There was a quiet authority in her voice, a confidence that needed no justification. Instructions were given in short, clear phrases, and each was executed without question. She was not merely guiding them. She was orchestrating the entire operation. A faint noise drew her attention, a soft metallic click in the distance, easily missed by anyone untrained. She froze momentarily, assessing potential threat, calculating probabilities, reviewing contingencies. The men noticed her pause and mirrored her caution. They trusted her instincts implicitly, knowing they were the result of experience and an unflinching clarity of mind. She signaled them to continue, and they proceeded carefully. Every turn, every door, every shadow was evaluated. She remained vigilant, aware of both the physical environment and the psychological tension that permeated the space. Her mind worked on multiple levels, analyzing risk, predicting outcomes, coordinating movements, and maintaining situational awareness. It was a complex dance of intellect and instinct, performed seamlessly under the pressure of the unknown. As they reached the central room, she stopped again, this time to assess the target area. The space was more complex than anticipated, requiring strategic placement of personnel and equipment. She directed the men with precision, assigning roles, positioning resources, and establishing clear lines of communication. Her planning was meticulous, leaving no room for error. They responded fluidly, demonstrating their own expertise while reinforcing her authority. A brief moment of silence passed. In that stillness, she reflected on the trajectory that had brought her here. Her life as a nurse had been only one part of her story. The experiences had honed her abilities, the training, the missions, the countless scenarios where split-second decisions meant life or death, were now converging in this single moment. It was a reminder that her past had prepared her for this, even if the world outside had no idea who she truly was. She gave a final set of instructions, concise and deliberate. The men acknowledged each directive with subtle gestures, their focus unwavering. She could feel the tension in the air, but she did not allow it to control her. Calmness, clarity, and decisiveness guided her every movement. She was fully present, fully aware, and fully in command. The operation began in earnest. She led with precision, moving through the room, guiding each action, anticipating each challenge. Every decision she made was informed by experience. Every command carried weight. Every gesture calculated for maximum effect. She was the unseen force driving the mission, a steady hand in the midst of potential chaos. As events unfolded, she remained composed. Even when unexpected complications arose, she adapted swiftly, recalibrating the plan with a clarity that inspired confidence. The men followed her lead without hesitation, their trust in her abilities absolute. Together, they navigated the complexities of the situation, executing their objectives with skill and efficiency. Through it all, her mind remained analytical, her senses alert, her judgment precise. She was aware of the gravity of the situation, the potential consequences of every action, yet she moved with calm certainty that only experience could provide. Her past, her training, and her instincts converged seamlessly in this moment, allowing her to perform with unmatched competence. And as the operation progressed, it became clear that she was not just a participant but the key element of its success. Her presence, her decisions, her guidance were indispensable. The SEALs relied on her, not because she demanded authority, but because she had earned it through skill, composure, and unwavering focus. In the quiet intervals between action, she allowed herself brief, controlled breaths, maintaining clarity and composure. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but it was a burden she carried with confidence. She was no stranger to pressure, to risk, to the necessity of making the right choice in moments that defined everything. The room, the mission, the men around her, all were extensions of her own preparation and experience. She moved with purpose, directed with precision, and executed with calm authority that inspired trust. Every action was deliberate, every decision informed, every moment critical. By the time the initial phase of the mission concluded, it was evident to all involved that her expertise had made the difference. Lives were stabilized, risks mitigated, and the path forward secured. The SEALs looked to her not just with respect, but with recognition of her unique capability. She was a quiet center of control, the guiding force, and the steady hand that had ensured success. And in that moment, standing among trained professionals who relied on her without question, she allowed herself a fleeting thought. This was a culmination of her training, her instincts, her past choices. She had stepped out of one world into another seamlessly, and she had proven once again that she was not defined solely by her title or by appearances. She was more than a nurse, more than a colleague, more than anyone outside this room could ever imagine. The night air felt heavier now, thick with anticipation. She moved carefully through the shadows, each step deliberate, her senses alert to the smallest sound, the faintest movement. The SEALs flanking her followed silently, trusting her lead, yet fully prepared to react if needed. Every detail mattered. The creak of a floorboard, the reflection of a distant light, the subtle shift of a curtain in the building ahead. She noticed them all, cataloging the information silently, instinctively. They reached the entrance of the building they were meant to secure. She paused, scanning every corner, every doorway. Her eyes caught a shadow moving slightly against the far wall. Not a threat yet, but enough to warrant caution. She signaled with a hand, subtle but precise, and the team adjusted their positions immediately. Spreading out in a formation she perfected in countless training exercises. The rhythm of their movement was quiet, efficient, and fluid, almost like a dance choreographed with precision. Her mind raced through possible scenarios while maintaining an external calm that betrayed nothing. Every door, every hallway, every potential point of entry or ambush was mapped in her mind. She assessed the risk, measured the timing, calculated the most effective path. Years of experience in high-pressure situations had trained her to react without hesitation, to make choices in seconds that could change outcomes for many people. Tonight was no different. Even though the stakes were higher than anything she had faced in a hospital, inside, the building was dark and silent, almost oppressively still. The smell of dust and cold cement filled the air. She motioned for the team to split into smaller units, each following her directions precisely. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm but firm, delivering commands that were simple, clear, and impossible to misinterpret. Left corridor. 2 steps behind the wall. Eyes open. Move on my signal. They complied instantly, each member aware that hesitation could be costly. A door at the end of the hall stood slightly ajar. She signaled for it to be checked. One of the SEALs approached slowly, keeping low, hand ready on his equipment. She watched carefully, analyzing the angle, anticipating every possible outcome. As the door creaked open, she instructed, eyes on the far corner, cover each other, entry on my count. They moved in synchronization, their actions a seamless extension of her command. Her attention to detail was meticulous. She noticed the subtle marks on the floor, the faint disturbances in dust that indicated prior movement. Each clue was a piece of the puzzle, allowing her to anticipate what was ahead. The team followed her silently, their training complementing her intuition. She guided them through the space with a calm authority that inspired confidence and maintained focus, even in the uncertainty of the darkened corridors. The building held more challenges than expected. Hallways twisted unpredictably. Staircases shifted positions, and multiple potential hiding spots created layers of risk. Yet, she navigated them methodically. Each step, each command, each decision was calculated. She had learned to trust her instincts, to rely on experience, and to remain unwavering under pressure. The men around her mirrored her precision, their movements disciplined and deliberate, aware that she held the plan in her hands. As they advanced deeper, a sudden sound, a soft shuffle, almost imperceptible, alerted her. She froze, hand raised, signaling the team to halt. Her senses picked up the rhythm of breathing, the pattern of movement. She analyzed the timing and angle, realizing it was likely a minor presence, perhaps a civilian trapped inside, or an unintended intruder. She adjusted the plan silently, ensuring the safety of the team while preparing for a potential confrontation. "Left flank," she whispered, guiding two of the SEALs to cover a side exit. "Maintain visual. Signal only if movement changes." They nodded, following her instructions with practiced precision. Every member understood that she was not just leading. They were executing her strategy, their trust absolute, knowing her judgment was decisive and informed. The core room they needed to secure lay just ahead. She paused outside, assessing all angles. Windows, doors, vents. Nothing escaped her attention. She signaled the team to halt, taking a final mental check. Each man was positioned, every line of sight accounted for, every potential risk considered. Her mind moved faster than the environment, anticipating complications and preparing contingencies. Calm authority guided her, but beneath that exterior was a constant analysis. Every possibility accounted for, every choice deliberate. She spoke briefly but clearly. Entry in 3 counts. Cover angles. No surprises. Her voice carried command, subtle but compelling, and the team responded instantly. Step by step, they moved in, shadows blending seamlessly with shadows, their presence nearly undetectable. Every movement was deliberate, a balance of stealth and control, honed over countless operations she had trained for long before any civilian life she had led. Inside the room, the space was larger than anticipated. Crates and equipment formed obstacles that required careful navigation. She assessed each, directing the team to optimal positions. Her instructions were precise, minimizing exposure while maximizing coverage. They were efficient, and her foresight allowed them to act as one cohesive unit, fluid and unstoppable. Every instruction was executed without hesitation, reinforcing the trust between her and the SEALs. Then she noticed something unexpected, a subtle vibration in the floor, faint but distinct. She recognized it immediately, a mechanical device of some kind, likely sensitive, potentially dangerous. She signaled a pause, her mind calculating the implications. Step back, contain the perimeter, maintain silence. The team obeyed instantly, and she moved forward, scanning the room with an analytical eye, assessing the device and determining the safest approach. Her knowledge of handling unexpected hazards was precise, informed by years of rigorous training and experience in high-pressure environments. With careful movements, she instructed the SEALs to adjust positions, guiding them with hand signals and concise verbal commands. She approached the device, analyzing its structure, anticipating potential failure points, and calculating risk mitigation. Her focus was absolute, her composure unshakable. Every decision was deliberate, every movement controlled, every instruction delivered with clarity. The team watched her lead, ready to execute her plan flawlessly. The device was disarmed without incident, a testament to her skill and attention to detail. She breathed slightly, a controlled exhale, then signaled the team to continue. They advanced further, maintaining the structure formation she had established. Her calm presence guided them, and even as tension rose, her composure remained intact. The room, the mission, the stakes, all were balanced by her unwavering focus. As they secured the area, she paused for a moment, allowing the team to confirm status and ensure all risks were neutralized. She reviewed the layout, the entry points, the potential vulnerabilities. Her mind cataloged everything, preparing for the next phase. She remained vigilant, aware that complacency was the enemy. Every detail mattered, and she ensured the team maintained awareness and readiness. Finally, with the immediate threat contained, she took a brief moment to center herself. Her eyes scanned the room, noting every detail, every position, every potential improvement. She allowed herself a single thought. This was a culmination of everything she had trained for, every skill she had honed, every choice that had brought her here. She was not merely a participant. She was the anchor, the guiding force, and the calm authority in a situation where hesitation could be fatal. With a subtle nod, she indicated that the area was secure. The team acknowledged, and she allowed herself controlled breath, feeling the quiet satisfaction, precision, and skill applied successfully. The mission, though ongoing, had reached a point where her expertise had clearly made a difference. She had led with authority, guided with clarity, and maintained control under pressure. The SEALs recognized her capability, their trust validated once again. In that moment, she stood quietly amidst the team, fully aware of her role and the impact of her actions. Calm, composed, and entirely in command, she had demonstrated the depth of her experience and the precision of her judgment. Every movement, every decision, every instruction had been deliberate, and the results spoke for themselves. She was more than her previous title suggested, more than anyone outside this room could understand, and fully capable of steering the mission to the challenges ahead. The quiet tension of the night stretched as she watched the figures approach. Their steps were steady, confident, not the kind of nervous movements someone would make if they were ordinary visitors. She could tell immediately they were trained, disciplined, and aware of more than just their immediate surroundings. The air felt charged, as though the city itself was holding its breath. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder, her posture straight, controlled, yet relaxed. There was no panic. There was only readiness. As they drew closer, one of the men moved slightly ahead of the rest. He stopped a few feet away and removed his cap, revealing a clean-cut face, sharp eyes that scanned her from head to toe. She remained still, eyes locked, studying his movements, assessing his intent. When he spoke, his voice was calm, steady, and carried an unspoken authority. "Ma'am," he said. The single word carried weight, respect, and acknowledgement of her position, though outside observers would have no idea what it meant. Her gaze softened slightly, a flicker of recognition passing across her face. They weren't here to threaten. They were here to acknowledge. She nodded once curtly and replied, "I expected you." No one else was around to hear, but the tone of her voice was firm, precise, carrying no doubt. The men immediately relaxed, their stance less rigid. She could feel their confidence in her, their understanding that she had orchestrated everything to this moment. Years of preparation, both in hospitals and in far less forgiving environments, had brought her here. One of the men extended his hand in a professional gesture, but she didn't take it. Instead, she gestured for them to follow, moving toward the vehicles. She led, their steps echoing softly against the empty street. The night was still, the distant hum of traffic a faint undercurrent. Her senses were attuned to everything. The subtle changes in shadows, the movements of the night wind, the possible approach of others. She was always aware, always calculating, but her movements remained smooth, deliberate, confident. Inside the vehicles, the men took positions immediately, checking equipment and communications. She sat quietly in the front passenger seat, observing everything, her mind running through possibilities, potential risks, and contingency plans. Her role here was not just as a participant. It was as a leader, a coordinator, and a guiding force. She knew the men trusted her expertise implicitly, yet she remained modest, silent, letting action speak louder than words. The drive was brief, but every moment was filled with awareness. She noticed patterns in the city lights, the subtle timing of the signals, the shadows that moved differently than they should. Every detail was registered, cataloged, and evaluated. She spoke rarely, but when she did, her voice was clear, concise, and authoritative. Left turn coming. Maintain spacing. Watch the corners. The men followed without hesitation, their training complementing her instincts. Arriving at the destination, the vehicle stopped silently. She stepped out first, her feet touching the asphalt lightly, almost soundlessly. The team moved as one behind her, a disciplined unit. Yet her presence clearly established a rhythm. Every step, every movement, every glance was deliberate. She assessed the building ahead, the surrounding area, and the potential risks. Her mind moved faster than her body, anticipating problems before they could arise, devising solutions before they were necessary. The entrance loomed ahead, shadowed and quiet. She motioned the team to split into smaller units, each moving with precision, covering angles, entrances, and exits. Her voice was calm but authoritative. Entry in 5. Cover each line of sight. No unnecessary noise. Every man executed flawlessly. Her instructions were minimal, yet perfectly understood. This was not the time for discussion. Only action, precision, and awareness. Inside, the building was a labyrinth of shadows and echoing footsteps. She navigated the corridors with confidence. Each turn, each doorway, each potential hazard carefully analyzed. The men followed her lead, trusting her instincts implicitly. She directed them quietly, with subtle gestures and sharp, concise commands. Every movement was controlled, measured, and deliberate. Her experience outside of the hospital, the missions, the training, the high-stakes scenarios, manifested in every decision, every glance, every word. At one point, a faint sound caught her attention, a subtle vibration, almost imperceptible. She froze, hand raised, signaling the team to stop. Her eyes scanned the space, evaluating, calculating risk, weighing options. It was likely minor, but she treated every possibility with the same level of attention. One of the men moved cautiously to investigate under her silent guidance. She observed, ready to adjust instantly. The sound proved harmless, but her attention to detail ensured no surprise could compromise them. They reached the room central to their objective. She paused, analyzing all angles, the layout, the shadows, the potential vulnerabilities. She positioned the team strategically, optimizing coverage while minimizing exposure. Her instructions were minimal, clear, and precise. Cover corners. Watch exits. Entry on my mark. Her calm authority ensured every man moved seamlessly, executing without hesitation, trusting her judgment completely. The room itself was cluttered. Shadows deep and potential risks varied. She advanced carefully, assessing, guiding, instructing. A device on a table caught her attention. A small mechanical object, easily overlooked by anyone untrained. She instructed the men to maintain positions and observed carefully, analyzing its purpose and potential threat. Her understanding of hazards, both conventional and unconventional, allowed her to determine the safest approach. Every move was deliberate, calculated, and controlled. With careful precision, she ensured the area was secure. The device posed no immediate threat, neutralized by her instructions and planning. She allowed the team to proceed further, maintaining vigilance. Every corner, every doorway, every shadow was accounted for. Her leadership was subtle but absolute, a balance of calm authority and acute awareness. The SEALs moved with trust, executing flawlessly under her guidance, demonstrating the synergy between expertise and instinct. The operation continued, each step executed with precision. Her mind cataloged every action, every movement, every potential variable. She guided silently, confidently, decisively, her instincts honed by years of experience, her awareness heightened by training, her presence commanding without force. The mission unfolded as planned, and her role as coordinator, strategist, and guardian was undeniable. Finally, as the operation concluded, she allowed herself a controlled breath, every risk mitigated, every contingency covered, every instruction executed perfectly. The men around her acknowledged the success with subtle nods, their respect evident without words. She had led, guided, and ensured the mission's success, demonstrating her skill, composure, and unmatched precision. As the night drew to a close, they departed quietly. She remained composed, her movements calm, controlled, aware. The SEALs had arrived calling her ma'am, not just out of respect, but in recognition of her leadership, skill, and the decisive authority she had earned. And as she stepped back into the cool night air, her mind briefly wandered to the quiet hospital she had left behind, the lives she had cared for, the lessons she had imparted, the calm she had brought to chaos. She had navigated both worlds, healing and high-stakes action, and in both, she had been indispensable, unwavering, and remarkable in ways few would ever understand.